This is Hacking the Afterlife podcast with Jennifer Schaefer. Jennifer?
Richard. Hi, love.
How are you? Gosh, this has been an exciting 2-week vacation. So how have you been?
What? Did I miss something? Was it a vacation? Actually, yes, I've been doing well, but I definitely missed this last week. I'm sorry for totally spaced that I was going to Pelican Hill to play golf.
Oh, no, very good, very good. It's the people on the flip side that miss you, right?
By the way, cheers, everybody. It's happy hour today. We are on spring break.
Yeah, that's true. I'm having my tea.
Mm-hmm.
All right, very good. So we might as well get into the thick of it. We haven't talked to Luana for a couple of weeks. And so let's ask Luana if she doesn't mind coming forward to tell us who's on her list or what's on her list today.
What was funny is that she said, yes, you have. We both talked to her. Yes, you have. I don't know. I just got Elvis Presley.
Okay, let's not judge it. Let's just allow it. So, Lou, is that correct? Is Elvis on the top of your VIP list there? Does he want to come forward and talk to us?
Yeah, he wants to talk about your book and music.
He wants to talk about the book, Tuning Into the Afterlife.
And listen, you guys, we were just discussing the fact that you and I are still not tired of each other
after 7 years.
7 years. And we also were discussing the fact that, where I met you was listening to one of your books, and then I haunted you on Facebook and said I wanted to donate time, and you're like, yeah, I don't really work with mediums.
It's true, and it's exactly how I sound.
He kind of did, and I'm like, that's offensive, but whatever. And then you're like, how would you like to solve the biggest mystery?
No, I can tell you that as we were talking, I was trying to be polite to say, it hasn't been my focus. And then I found myself thinking, like, well, why not? What's the problem? What is your issue? And at that moment, it was like, oh my gosh, I had spent like 30 years researching somebody who was missing. And Jennifer was saying she works with law enforcement on missing person cases. So why not examine that? And I dragged my camera down to her office, which she allowed me in, and then set it up. And we spent 3 hours talking to Amelia Earhart, because I had spent 3 decades gathering intel and research. And it was mind-bending because Jennifer was talking about things I had just seen on Saipan, where I had visited a cell where locals, over 200 people, claimed that that's where she was incarcerated. Anyway,
I love she was. But then I gave you information that you didn't know.
Absolutely.
Someone called you on the way.
That's correct.
Home.
Very, very strange, because we got to the end of our interview and I was thinking to myself, is there any more questions? And part of my brain is thinking, am I making this up? I can't, the reality. And I said, well, so what happened to you? Were you shot or beheaded? I mean, these were two things that I had heard people say. Eyewitnesses claim they had seen a soldier, an American, and both of those things had happened to American pilots who had been shot down before World War II on Saipan. But she said, no, I died of dysentery. And I said, died of dysentery? So what happened? What did they do with you? And she said, they reburied me. They moved my body.
Right.
And I said, and then you said, apropos of no question, you said, she's saying that when those GIs dug up my body, they only found an arm. Now, I had not said to Jennifer, there was this report in 1963 in a book where these two guys, Hansen and Burke, claimed that they had been ordered to dig up her body in the jungle.
And by the way, I didn't know who we were going to investigate until he got to my office.
Until I got to the office. Not only did Jennifer draw a map of Saipan and showed me where I had been and showed me where I had looked. Not only did she do that, but here she says this thing, apropos of nothing, when they dug up my body, they only found an arm. Now, as I was driving away from her office, the phone rang, and it was an NTSB investigator from Seattle, Washington, calling me to say he had spent 5 hours with this information this stuff that had been gathered by a researcher. And he said, Rich, everything is in his information is what you told me about her. But I got to tell you, I saw that when they dug her up, they only found an arm. Literally 10 minutes away from her office.
That's
and your brain just went, whoop.
crazy.
And then took me about 6 months where I found an interview with these guys in Chicago Tribune, 1977, Hansen and Burke. Off camera, after the interview, one of them said, when we dug her up, we only found a partial rib cage and an arm. Now, if you think about that for a second, Jennifer didn't say partial rib cage, so she couldn't have gotten that information from the Chicago Tribune. She's getting it from Amelia.
Nor would I even have any wherewithal to look.
Exactly. I mean, where would you get that from? Right. But still, this idea that Amelia herself told us that information, that detail, and that it's confirmed later on. So that was like a cold bucket of water in the face, where I realized, oh my God, I've met somebody who's like a cell phone to the flip side. And then it became, well, I know that people, when they work with mediums, generally, they're distraught and they want to talk to somebody and they kind of just clam up. And the medium does their best at trying to interpret whatever they're seeing and saying. It's, as we know, Jennifer, many times she nails it. But that point is that some people then come away feeling, I'm not sure if I made it up, blah, blah, blah. They go through all that.
And I always hear, are you sure you just didn't read my mind?
Yeah, there you go. Like, that's easy.
if that's easy to do. But okay, the reason why I said that, because I absolutely love how we met, but I also love the fact that your book is your last book. I've listened to all your books because I really highly recommend. I always, even when people need the book to touch it, I always tell them to listen to it because of your voice and what it's done for me. Everybody does things differently. Like, if I look at a book, I have so much information coming in that I have to read the first page over and over again. It doesn't work. But when I'm listening to it, like I do Spirit and like I do everything else, it comes through and I have to catch it, and I'm trained to listen that way. That being said, I think a lot of people, they always say, if you make a website, make sure that they can get all the information within 30 seconds or less because of their ADD.
Yeah, that's right. We all have it, right?
And so when you are listening to a book, I highly, I've sent so many of my clients audiobooks from this book, not because I'm in it, but because it is so great. It is, you take all of our work and your work outside of it and everything else. You've just made a fantastic book. And I have to tell you something that was really sweet last night. I was ordering something on Amazon and it popped up with books that you also may like. And it was Backstage Pass #3. And I'm like, Blakey, look at this. Look at how cool it's popping up. And look at my name's right there.
Well,
just very sweet.
And so it is interesting. Elvis, I know we know you're standing in the wings here. It's okay. But
it was about the book. That's what I wanted to talk about.
No, and it to give context. And so Jennifer and I worked as a music critic for Variety for a number of years. So I did meet a lot of artists. I've also worked as a filmmaker, and I met a lot of people that way. And Luana, our person on the flip side, she knew everybody, did over 300 TV shows and films. But that being said, when the first people started showing up in our work together, and Jennifer and I, we were just sort of trying to figure out, what is this process? And I would film her, prior to Zoom, I would film her talking about these things and having conversations with me in restaurants, cafes, wherever we could go, that we could just hang out, for an hour or two. And it was Tom Petty who showed up one day after he had passed away. And I didn't review Tom. I'd never met him. So I was kind of like, well, what's he doing here? I didn't think Luana had ever met him or knew him. And so I asked a simple question. So what does he want to talk about? Why is he here? And his answer was unusual, because instead of answering the question, he said, oh my God, you have no idea how hard it is to talk to you guys. There's like a line around the block, and your friend Luana, she's got the clipboard. And unless you know her, then you don't get through. So she's like the person with the clipboard at the VIP lounge in the back of the auditorium with the velvet rope.
Right. And just to remind everyone, they made that as a joke because there is no, not as a joke on that part, but there is no hierarchy over there. No one's
No,
famous
there
over
is no
there.
VIP. Yeah, that's right.
There is
But
no
it
VIP.
was such a funny sentence that it
Right.
became the
There
title
was
of
like,
our books, Backstage Pass to the Flip Side. And then,
mhm.
just the way Jennifer had approached me, I stopped judging. You know, if somebody shows up, do your best to ask them cogent questions about what they.
And clearly my interpretation has been not, isn't like with this line of work, everybody expects you to knock it out of the park. You have to bat 1,000. I do my best, but it's interpretation. This is what people need to
Sure,
understand too. And
sure.
we've shown it over and over again about the interpretation aspect of it.
Well,
But
and Tom's a good example because we asked him, and he specifically said, I want you to pass some information on to my family. It was very specific what he wanted us to say. And I said, oh, I don't know your family. I mean, like, how do you expect us? I mean, what are we going to do? You know, post it somewhere? And his answer was something along the lines of, you'll figure it out. And, you know, the kind of guy I am, filmmaker dude, yeah, you can figure that out. How do you? So I did reach out to one of his family members and I sent verbatim what he had asked us to pass along. And this family member very generously wrote me back and said, thank you so much. I appreciate it. However, I don't think you and your friend Jennifer are talking to my dad at all. And but
right.
you have to allow, okay, that's and so the next time he showed up, it was me saying, so dude, I did exactly what you asked, and they didn't want to hear from you. And his response was, well, you know, eventually they'll understand, eventually they'll get to this point where you can have this communication. So it's not that Jennifer and I are seeking out famous people.
Uh-oh.
You're frozen, just to paraphrase, uh and I don't want to make Elvis wait any longer, but we just talk to whoever shows up and we do our best to figure out what it is they want to say. Now, Elvis, please, you have the
Right.
floor.
Okay. And this is just Elvis Presley,
Yeah,
Richard,
there you go.
Elvis.
Elvis.
My check with my chicken scratch. I don't even have my phone,
Oh my gosh.
which is fabulous. Okay, hold on. He's mentioning the 8th chapter of your book. So you have it right there?
I do.
All right, hold on.
8th chapter. Do I have a
The eighth-
pages on here?
I don't know.
I don't.
Or an
All right, hold on. What's it called? It's called We'll Be Right Back. Okay, and it
Okay.
comes after.
He says it's talking about, I don't know if
Okay.
it's the Beatles. It has to do with the connection to the afterlife, of course, but I'm pretty sure that's your whole book. But
Yes.
it has something. Is there something where, is that where you sang, or you tried to, is that dealing with,
Well, let's ask him. There's it is about somebody that we've interviewed before.
Okay, is it the
and
Beatles?
recently.
Is it anybody? Okay, hold on, because he's making me think, or the Beatles are coming through.
Can I just
They're
say there's a Tom Petty reference in here, just like the story that I just told. Yes, you're correct. The Beatles,
Okay.
George Harrison is in chapter 8. There's a conversation with George.
Okay, so they're mentioning what he expressed to me was that you singing the song. So it has to do with you singing Imagine. I know you're talking about George Harrison, but it has to do with you singing. I know that was a later chapter or something like that.
It's okay. No worries.
Okay, so give me a second with that. Everyone needs to find their voice, he says.
Everyone needs to find their voice.
That is what unlocks you as a person, as a spirit. That's what, because when you find your voice, it trails with confidence. How important it is to, to just do it, just sing, just believe. It's going on those lines, like, just believe. Who cares if you're not a good singer? Your voice can be in cooking. Your voice can be whatever you're in. Like, my voice is with carrying other voices. Yeah, no one wants to hear me sing, but everyone has a beautiful voice when they're in alignment with who they are.
Very good. Right? Very good.
Because when you're not in alignment with who you are, You're not understanding how great you could actually be.
Very good. It's fascinating because not, he did mention chapter 8. That's the chapter that I appeared with Merv Griffin. Charles Grodin and I were on the Merv Griffin show. And just yesterday, I got an email and they were able to track down 3 tracks of Charles Grodin singing, a cappella, singing an improv, where in Paul Simon's studio, they just put on a mic, they put on a track, and Chuck just sang a song. And it's hysterical because it sounds like a real song, but it's slightly out of tune, and it's him doing like big notes. And I was thinking about that yesterday, that, it doesn't have to be in tune if it's hilarious. And he also did it with Luana. Me and Luana went to a sound studio with Grammy Award winning producer Russ Titleman, and we recorded Chuck singing. But the reason I was there is I was the manager of Hutch Saxony, which is the pseudonym that Chuck went under. So Russ didn't know who it was. Paul Simon had just said to him, Hutch Saxony's coming over, I need you to record something. And so we went into the studio, and without even thinking, they hit the track and he just started singing, improvised, hilarious songs. So it made me think of what you're talking about, which is, find your voice.
Right.
It doesn't have to be American Idol voice. That'll be great, but find your voice in terms of why you're on the planet and what you want to do on the planet and what your reason for showing up on the planet is.
And now more than ever, and stop doing, from what I'm getting, don't do things because you have to, do things because you want to.
Okay.
And granted, there's stuff like me doing dishes that I'm not very happy about all the time. Or like I just was told that I'm going to San Luis Obispo tomorrow.
Oh.
There's stuff that just isn't, where I don't think I should go. But
well, that's fun. I worked on a movie up there. That was fun.
You want to go?
I do. Personal best. We went up and shot up there. There's a lot of great restaurants up there.
I'm gonna pick you up at 6 in the morning.
A.M.
6 a.m.
Why are you going up there again?
Because my daughter, who just had surgery on Monday for her tonsils, thinks that she needs to be there for opening, and she doesn't even know if she's going. She got accepted to go there for physics, which is wonderful.
Oh, for San Luis Obispo. Wow. And what's
it's parents' weekend or something, or a weekend for them to like just check out the school more.
Oh, that's cool. But listen, no one's going to be up at what time do you want to be there? 9 o'clock?
So I'll pick you up at 6.
I used to drive up there many times. It was funny. Really quite an adventure. Anyway, besides that, all right, let's get back to Elvis. Elvis doesn't care about us going up to San Luis Obispo. Great steakhouse along the way. But anyway, Elvis, our friend, what else do you want to talk about?
He wanted to trigger what you just said about your voice.
Finding your voice.
Finding your voice. He says it's so important. He said during the last years of his life, when he didn't feel he had a voice, he still sang. He still was singing, right? But it's almost like when he lost that feeling for it, a lot of other things ended for him.
Let me ask you. Oh, go ahead.
You can pinpoint it on, he's just showing me my drink or whatever. He's just like, but something in me, because of that, cut me off to regaining my strength back.
Very interesting. We'd like to know his opinion of the movie about him that's coming out soon. It hasn't been released yet. Tom Hanks is in it. Plays.
Oh, okay. Hold on.
Directed by Baz Luhrmann.
They were good friends, or somebody was good friends with him that he knew. I felt like. Hold on.
Okay.
Oh, it was the person that Tom Hanks. Okay, hold on.
Oh, I think Tom. Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I know you're right. Tom did reach out to somebody who knew Colonel Parker, and that person who was a friend helped him with Parker and do that story.
Right. Okay. He said that he's like, it's very accurate until it's not. It's very Hollywoodish.
Yeah.
But he also says that it was the good, bad, and the ugly. That needs to get out there. And then he's showing me, you know, the Kennedys and what we've discussed. By the way, wasn't there something that we've discussed about the Kennedys? Dealing with Maryland, that
We,
actually just came out now.
um,
We discussed it long
yes,
time ago.
yes,
About
that's true.
housing.
No, we did. And we mentioned it in the process, because I was bouncing around and I asked you that question. There was an article in Vanity Fair where they talked about how she passed away, and it was pretty much note for note what she had told us, that other people are involved. You
Right.
know.
And he says that the truth does set you free from here or there, from everywhere.
Yes,
Um,
thank you, Elvis. We've heard that before. It makes
but he's
sense.
also, but what else is very interesting? He says that there are days where I feel like time, well, it's because I'm in both worlds at once, where I feel like time does not exist. And we've talked about the essence. The essence of who you are gets carried through to you to the afterlife. But you get to work on yourself there, here, you get to work on yourself everywhere. This is just like we're in a classroom, they're in a classroom. Like they're learning on the other side how to communicate with us and vice versa. It's becoming more, we're becoming more of, that was kind of funny, more of a blended family with the flip side. And the more people understand how normal it is, the more that they're going to be able to realize that it's not just in their mind. Your mind's there to protect you. Remember that. And it's
I understand. It's the idea, the filters that block us, this information
right.
from us, that's there to protect you.
Right. Maybe there's too much, maybe because he just mentioned AI, artificial intelligence with your
Artificial
mind.
intelligence with your mind. Well, I
Like,
mean, if you think about what he's saying, which is fascinating,
right.
because you're learning on the flip side, and people aren't aware of that. We've talked a little bit about classes and classrooms. Your father generously took us to an astrophysics class that he's taking on the flip side, and I've been filming people recently talking to their councils. And in those sessions, some of them, I'll say, are you aware of any classrooms? And they take us right to the class, and I go right to the teacher and I ask questions about what the class is about, what are they teaching. And it's fascinating because, of course, the teachers are more used to this kind of dialogue than the students are. The fact that
Right.
they can communicate with us because they've been doing it for so long. So, Elvis, are you taking any classes on the flip side? Almost everybody is, but
No,
no, you're not.
he said
Okay.
no.
No. All right. Well,
Hold on a second. He says he's helping teaching classes over there, how to find your voice
so you're
and what
more of a
happens when you
teacher.
lose.
Okay, so you're more
Right. And
you're not.
what happens when you lose it.
What happens when you lose your voice? Yeah, it's interesting. Somebody found
And that's that voice is, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
Voice is coincides with spirit. So
Voice
if you don't
coincides
have
with
your voice or you've been
frequency.
shut, your frequency of your spirit. So if you don't have your voice, you get shut out, you shut yourself off, or you're not able to be your spirit. You're not able to find your full self, to be fully spirited, I guess you can say.
We did have this conversation with Prince. We asked him about why he chose a lifetime that had so much of a voice, and he told us about a lifetime previous to this one where he didn't. Now, I want to ask Prince a question. Recently, actually yesterday, a couple days ago, a news reporter in Minneapolis found footage of you at the age of like 9 or 10 or 11 years old. There was a teacher's strike, and they interviewed you on camera. I'm just curious what your thoughts about that are, sir.
So he says it was fantastic. He said he had those eyes as he did when he was like 30 years old. He was that old. He said he was an old man in a little suit.
He
I
did
don't
sound.
know.
You
I
haven't
don't know
seen
what
it. You haven't seen it, but
no, no.
it's Prince as an old man in a little suit talking about teachers going on strike and how they have rights and there's no reason that
And
teachers.
yeah, he said he had compassion and sympathy, and he totally understood, even though he didn't understand.
Very good. And of course, you have spoken a little bit about frequency. I mean, you've spoken a lot to us about frequency and about.
He's like, he goes, I'd like to think I invented it, but no.
So what Elvis was just saying, do you concur? Is that something about finding your voice?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Voice represents everything he's showing me.
So what do you
Voice
mean
rep
by voice? What is that? What is voice?
Aw, it's you giving your spirit a voice of who you are. So if you, instead of just blah blah blah, which I do at times, um, I'm giving my spirit a voice when I'm in my dharma, when I'm in my passion, when I have my kindness, compassion, love, when I don't have projections, or when I'm not judging myself or others. Like, you can't judge yourself or others and have a voice with your spirit, because that your spirit wouldn't do that.
So in let me ask you this. So I'm just back to the tuning into the afterlife aspect. So singing, performing, playing, frequency, string theory, Pythagoras, all of it. That's
Mhm.
all related to your voice. Is that correct?
Right. AKA your spiritual gangster side of yourself. Yes,
Spiritual gangster, did you say? I like that. That's cool.
I
And so
did.
and so and so Prince, people will ask, we've talked to you about this before, but are you
So
still
he just
performing?
said yes, but he just showed me that you can't perform unless if you have fear. Like, thank you. They just showed me, like, one of the things I feared the most was getting in front of an audience and just seeing what comes in. And I forced myself to do it every single week until I was comfortable with it. Now it's super fun for me and I love it. And it's made its own way of doing so many other things with my work, but he's saying that fear is one of the things that stops you. You're not in your, you don't have that voice per se for your spirit, because if you have fear, you're shutting down and you're getting back in your head, right? You
Mm-hmm.
immediately go back in your head, like, oh, I can't do it. Your mind chatter, I can't do it, which of course meditation works amazing for. You just, you'll know when you've succeeded of blending your spirit and your voice, because nothing can stop you with what you do. Only you can. Granted, we have things here called, we need to make a living, we need to do this, we need to do that. um, but if you keep doing the things that you're supposed to do with your work or with who you are, things are going to show up. It just might not look like, for you, for instance, it might not look the way that you wanted it to look. It might be writing those 8 books about this that you never wanted to do. you
Well, and
know
yeah, it's kind of odd because I find myself in the midst of writing them and then thinking, what was I thinking?
right.
Where did this
but
come from?
but what's great though about this, we might be Vincent Van Gogh when we leave, where we didn't have it, where things later on will be like, oh my gosh, they had it, they knew what they were talking about later
Well,
on.
and no, it's true. And I listen, because I remember when we first started talking to Luana, I would ask her
Mhm.
some questions about like what is her advice from the flip side, and the word always came back to me was focus. And I remember thinking to myself, oh, she means focus on one of your films instead of 20. And because I've always had like 20 projects going simultaneously. And then it was like, well, which one should I focus on? But I realize now she's talking about a lens, focus. Bring everything into focus. So, what's your theme of your life? What are you talking about? The thing that you're trying to focus on, bring it into focus. So, if it's talking to people on the other side, if it's helping people like yourself talk to people on the other side, whatever that is, sharing research, that's the focus that she's talking about. Lou, go ahead. Do you want to weigh in on that? Have I got that completely wrong?
No, but hold on. She wants to say it in a different way, I think. But
Please.
she says that you were right. She wants to dumb it up, I guess, or dumb it down. Hold on. I've heard this twice. We just can't be so serious about ourselves, because when you're so serious, it doesn't leave any room for the coincidences to happen. For, you know, definitely do something every day that you love to do, or for your, I always say this to my clients, I'm like, do something every day towards a goal, like of work, whatever that is. Like, like I always, even though technically I'm on spring break, I'm not. I've been working all week, right? It
Right.
just might not be in the formal setting at my office. Like I'm at my house right now doing this, I couldn't wait to do this today, but how many things popped up today? You just have to allow things to happen and know that they're not going against you. You just have to go with it.
So let's dig into that a little bit, Luana. You're talking about leaving
Oh,
space for coincidence, leaving room for coincidence. And so I wanted to ask
right.
Luana. First, Luana, is there anybody else that you want us to talk to, or do you want to talk about the process of how you guys create coincidence?
I feel like it has to do with Chuck.
Okay, Charles Grodin. Thank you very
Hold
much,
on. I
Chuck.
know that you just talked to him. So hold on a second.
Well,
Um,
I mentioned him, yeah. What did you want to say, or what does Chuck want to say?
well, Chuck wanted to say something about himself. So hold on. He said you have to fake it until you make it. He said you faked it being like a fake person, whatever that name was, where you got into that.
Hutch Saxony. Yeah, that's funny.
That's so funny. He said sometimes it takes a little while to believe in what you're doing. For instance, and he showed me myself, like it took me a while to know that well, it's all depends on who you ask, whether I'm crazy or not, whether I was seeing things or not, or who I was talking to or not.
Sure, sure.
It took me a while to understand it. And he goes, give yourself the right to do that,
Great.
but don't limit yourself. Thank you. He just showed me how I call myself an intuitive. And part of that has to do with the fact that I didn't want to push myself in a cornerstone, by the way, push myself in a corner that I only am a medium, or I'm only an intuitive, or I'm only a medical intuitive, or I'm only an investigator. Instead, it just covers everything. So try to, like, that's why they say voice. Your voice can be heard in so many different realms, literally, with your thoughts, with your actions, with your intentions. Just keep a light heart, he says. If you feel like you have a heavy heart, you're going to feel it. It can even cause, thank you. You've heard of stories how people who have lost their loved ones, they die of a broken heart shortly after, people that have been married forever. And he says that you guys do a lot in your dream state.
Well, I can tell you that I was playing him singing around the house. It was great. It was just so much fun to hear his voice. And this documentary is being made by a terrific filmmaker about him, so I participated in that. So it's just fun, to share stories about him. We miss him terribly, needless to say, and
He
huge
says
part of
that
our life.
he just showed me your wife, and he says that she's had dreams about me too. He goes, don't get jealous, but she's dreamt about me as well. So
I think everybody dreams about you, Chuck. I think that's just the way of things. By the way, there was an awful Oscar memoriam where our friend Sally and you pictures of you were shown while people are dancing around on some stage, and that was ridiculous. Sorry, I thought it was ridiculous. They did a little better with the Grammys, but still, the memoriam part of the Oscars. Is there anybody that has an opinion about that, Chuck? Do you care about anything like that?
maybe
Or
something like that. Hold on. Well, the whole slapping, where do you recover from
so
that?
let's ask our class. Look, we have a lot of people in our class. You
He
know,
says, okay, so he said, let's just put a different person. He says, let's just talk. Okay. You can't explain what happened. He says, we see things from a collective side. So all of his past lives, all of his essence from the beginning of time. And he says that came from his essence from the beginning of time of whatever it was, feeling the need to do that. It wasn't just something that happened right then and there. This was a collective consciousness that he carried up to the stage and did that.
interesting.
It doesn't mean it was right. Especially not the night that, we're being, he goes, nobody's going to care about us dying. They're going to be talking about, well, what happened what happened.
Sure.
Right.
But I guess the question is also in terms of memoriam stuff. When you see that, or when people are thinking about you, of course, it's a connection to you because they see a photograph and they remember you. And so we had another people like Frank Bonner, somebody who was in my film You Can't Hurry Love. Dean Stockwell was in Limit Up. Sally Kellerman, my good friend, we're having a memorial for her at the end of the month. And Chuck, all four of you have appeared in my films, and I was thinking and you all appeared in this sort of memoriam thing. And I just wondered if it bugged you, or any of you guys wanted to weigh in, or if you cared about it, one way or the other.
They didn't really care. It's everybody has a different interpretation of how you
Grieve.
grieve, and what you hold in your hearts is from their essence. Like his ex-girlfriend he's laughing, might not think that much of him, but his wife does. Like whatever it is that you carry with you with each person is what we know about on the other side. We know our true essence. We know who we are.
Yeah.
In totality, not just the time that we were there. So we can sit there and laugh and think it was funny. He said there was a lot of boundaries that opened up, for this particular year. He says we're making more headway than not in our film industry of allowing it to be more
less inclusive and more
right. Not it's
Yeah.
not a hoity-toity club. It's
and it's less exclusivity. But I mean,
so now he's just showing me the movie that Sarah hold on a second. Jennifer was okay. So Jennifer, and I can't think of his name right now, but I'll think of it in just a second.
Don't Look Up.
Yes, that's it. That's it. What?
Don't Look Up. Know that? Don't Look Up. Yeah, but like reading it on your forehead. Don't Look Up. And so why are you mentioning Don't Look Up, Chuck?
I don't know. They just put that in my head. So give me a second.
Well, yeah. Lou.
I know. That's funny because it's not something I'm thinking about. I clearly didn't even know the name, and I was still trying to figure out what. Oh my God, it's gonna kill me.
Well, wait a minute. You guys are up, so maybe Don't Look Up. It's really related to you. Look up. Is that what you mean?
It means don't take yourself so seriously. Think about all the fun actors that were in that movie, right? And how it was made on Netflix. None of those actors would have ever done that a few years ago.
Yeah, that's right. I see. Okay. All of them got a chance to break out of their roles.
Right.
But I want to go back to the Will Smith thing for one moment, because there was a wonderful thing that Denzel Washington said, which is, who am I to judge? And so what Chuck is saying here is that when people act in a certain way, there's a totality. They see things, especially when it comes, and look, we can throw in Ukraine, we can throw in all kinds of things that happen on the planet, that from the flip side, they see a perspective that is about all of a person's lifetimes, the many lifetimes they've had.
Right.
And how, of course.
I mean, they actually said he's like, he got off on just that.
Yeah.
In a different lifetime.
In a different lifetime.
Right. But they're able to see that.
They're able to see that. So in a gunslinger era, or in an old Western era, or this thing of being insulted and being disrespected, it's humans who do it. People on the flip side don't really do it, because you guys don't challenge each other when you run into each other, do you? Or do you?
We work together to make us stronger, because
to make us here stronger, or over there?
No, over there, because they said when they're here, we actually get broken down in order to be built up again. So whether it's with the tribes that I was raised Mormon, you were raised, your wife was raised Mormon, to find yourself, you have to have if you had just one way of being here, you wouldn't have all those opportunities of figuring out who you are. Right?
Yeah. It reminds me of when people join the military, and they break them down, take away all of their stuff so they can become a killing machine. But still, that idea of take away all that stuff, and then you build up again, you start over again, learn lessons from all of that kind of rigmarole. So that's fascinating. Lou, who else do we need to talk to? Or I'm sorry, Chuck, were you done? Is there more?
Well, they're just showing me you. So hold on.
What'd I do?
Nothing. You did everything right. Hold on. It's Amelia. Hold on.
Oh.
Maybe that's why we talked about her in the beginning.
So it's interesting because we've talked about this. Even though you left our planet back in 1944, but disappeared in 1937, all those years ago, for you, it feels like last month. Because the time thing is just completely different.
Right.
And we've talked about this before, about finding a way to tell your story in the best possible way. And I've had, some people look at your story. But what avenue besides that one, let me just say, do you recommend, Amelia? I mean, is this the right time to tell your story? Maybe it's not. Maybe it needs another 20 years. I don't know.
That's interesting because what I'm feeling, it's almost like writing it anonymously from her girlfriend's perspective.
Right. All right. So what you're saying is there's a way to tell your story. It might not be film. It might be a book. It might be something else. I mean, I certainly haven't even tried to tell your story from a book, other than our Jennifer and I working together on
Right. Like it's
packing the acronym.
gathering her essence. It's like gathering her essence from everything that you've done, everything that you've known, and just writing it from a different perspective.
Something fresh and new. Because, every time I've had somebody say, well, gee, it's a shame, we didn't make this film before. And I always say, it's not my fault. But anyway, all right.
Right.
Well, I appreciate that. Listen, out of anybody, she does come back and say to us, come on, guys, don't give up.
I know.
Don't
and I would
give
not,
up.
believe me, that I would not try to say anything.
Well, knock on wood, let's just say that we have enough people on the flip side in our class
Mhm.
who enjoy this kind of repartee, and they know if we're able to do like a film, because the moment I get funding to do this film, I'm going back to Saipan and I'm digging up her plane and her body,
And I'll be right there with you.
and you'll be right there with me. So,
or at least on the phone with you.
but you see what I'm saying? So, Amelia, if you want that to happen, it's just like, let's find the right people to make that happen. Because I know it sounds fantastical, but if you've been listening to us for the past year, we are fantastical. Go ahead. What was that?
I don't know. She showed me Robert Thurman.
Oh, so what did you think of that talk that I gave for Menla, Amelia?
All of us loved it. They were all like, listening in on it. She said, we were just like this.
For those who don't know,
you represented the flip side so well. It'll be hard to keep up with what you've told them.
Well, if I may, I worked really hard on it, but let's just say I had a 2-hour talk at the Conference of Living and Dying.
She said everyone loved it over there as well as here, but everyone got a lot out of it about what we feel over here.
And I told the history of Jennifer and my working together. I told the history of Luana bringing me into this work. And then I talked about the science. I talked about the scientists who discovered that consciousness is not confined to the brain, etc. You can find it on the webpage, martinizone.com. There it is. And it's full length, 2-hour, unreserved, or whatever that is. That story. But I think it lays out pretty much everything that I've learned up to date.
It was very well said, she says. And she was
good.
Very proud of you because she says you slept really great the night before. Like you just had it all in your head.
I think that's pretty funny. That's an unusual compliment.
Well, because
you did a good job, but you slept really well. No, I get what she's saying, which is not being stressed about it, and just and of course asking. And this is the other thing.
I know, and not having fear with it. That's what they're trying to say, is that you didn't have fear with it. You just gave the evidence that you've
had fun,
gathered, and had fun with it. And by you not having fear, and that's another thing. Again, they're saying, like, if I had fear with what I did for work, no one would believe what I did for work.
Yeah, because they'd always be picking apart whatever thing that you missed or didn't say.
The fear is the same energy as someone keeping something or someone hiding something. When you have fear and people don't understand why, what's your first response? Oh, something must be wrong. Something must not be true.
Yeah, that's right. That fear. So Luana, and of course, for those who just turning in for the last time, Luana is my friend who passed away in 1996. Think about how weird it is that 26 years later, we'd be having this ongoing conversation on a weekly basis where she brings new information what she's
Mhm.
learned from the flip side. She's helping people on the other side to communicate just the way Jennifer is helping people here to communicate over there. It's a very unusual construct. But so while Jennifer and I are off working together, or whatever, a week goes by, she's working with people,
Right.
helping, talking. So is there anybody else in our class? And it could be anyone, Lou.
Actually, it's Eddie. So I spoke to his mother. It's a capital case in Texas. He was
Okay. So
killed. He
I
was
don't know
killed.
anything about it. Yeah.
But but I always said, so she races horses. His mom does. I love his mom, Sandy, and his dad. And she races horses, and she's the one that told me, like, because I said to her, and I don't know much about horses, but I always see myself riding horses, always, and it's always a white horse. And she told me yesterday, because they were looking for a horse, or this was a while ago actually, that I brought up. I'm like, he says that you're looking for a unicorn. And I didn't know what that meant.
That's funny.
And in the horse industry, the unicorn means it's the horse. It's the one that's going to
Oh,
do
wow.
well. So I, ever since then, I'm like, I've been called the unicorn, but I just always thought that
I
was
know
funny.
you're a fan of unicorn.
Very much so.
Yeah.
But yesterday she told me, she was does the horse have wings? And I said, actually, it does. That's the horse that I see myself on. She goes, well, that's a Pegasus. And she goes, let me tell you what that means. The Pegasus is what takes you into the other world. It's what connects you to the other world. It's a spirit traveler. When you're traveling into the other world, that's where the Pegasus comes in. And she's just like, I was shown that she was shown that as a little kid when her brother passed away. He came in on a Pegasus. And so it was just very
Wow.
fascinating. That just is
That
what I found out
is.
yesterday. So I'm like, oh, that makes total sense. I've always seen myself on a horse with wings. I had no idea it's because it's dealing, and I always see myself in a different realm with a horse with wings.
Yeah.
I had no idea why.
So today I was transcribing a talk that I had done, or a session I had done with somebody. And in the midst of their talking to their counsel, they saw somebody, an angel, somebody like a 5-year-old with wings. And so I asked about the wings. I asked about what they represent.
I have the chills.
I got a
Go
chill
ahead.
at the exact moment you did that. Weird. I'm getting it now. But I had a question about it, and I thought for a moment that maybe it was related to this cherub, this winged cherub that's on the cover of the book. So I asked about this, about the wings. I said, what do they represent? And then I asked the person I was talking to, somebody I'd never met before. I said, can you go over and touch the wings? And then she said, yeah, I can. They're energy. And I said, so tell me how do you what do they represent? And this angel said they represent speed of thought, transportation, moving around. I said, how many realms do you sort of keep an eye on? She said 5. So, and I thought to myself, oh, we've heard that before. I mean, there's of course many more realms, but her role is to work in 5. So that idea of angels and wings,
Yep.
it's their the idea is they're energetic metaphors for how people move from one realm to the next.
So she sent this to me and I got to read it because this is the first time I'm reading it. Thank you, Sandy. She says, the Pegasus could be a beautiful mythical steed that bears your burdens. Hear yourself and meditate on the issues in life as they'll be trying to inform you something or give a sign of what is occurring. The winged horse can even carry messages from other beings like angels or beings who live beyond us in other realms, called the astral plane, which is a level of reality that is at a far higher vibration than our terrestrial life. If you're facing a dark time in your life, Pegasus reminds you of the ability of sunshine and goodness to heal us and to the very core of your being. Because it is a Pegasus who guides the soul to heaven, Pegasus may also have brought messages from people who have died or passed before you. I'm like, this is
Lovely.
crazy. Right?
No, not crazy. That's lovely.
I've
Beautifully
never
said.
questioned it. So that's why people are attracted to certain they are mythical creatures because they're not from this realm, but they do exist, in
They
my
do
opinion.
exist. And we've
Yeah.
done this. We've done this where we've run into uh, mythological creatures and asked them about their journey. And some of them have said, no, I've never incarnated on the planet Earth. I have my own place that I. And and then we asked, like, well, did somebody have a dream or an out of body experience? And they went to your realm, and they go, yeah, but that's not my problem,
Right.
So, but I mean, in the interviews with people who see members of their council, I've met leprechauns, I've met fairies, I've met elves, elfin-like people, I've met people that are like lizard-like, with the eyes that go like that. Anyway, all kinds of different beings. And if we just take judgment off the table and just allow that we don't understand everything that's going on, but we can ask questions about everything that's going on, and then we can get some really unusual information. Lou, what else? Anybody else that we need to talk to today?
No, they all left.
They all left. Oh my God, they got a bigger, better deal.
No, she just says, she goes, the Pegasus was really important, and the timing couldn't have been more perfect because she sent this to me today.
That's great. That's great.
And I talked about it last night. I've never questioned it. That's the thing. I've never questioned it. I've always, ever since I started venturing into this work, which I don't call work, but into my voice.
This world,
ever since I started showing up with my voice with the spirit world, the Pegasus has always been there. And I just have never questioned it. I'm like, oh, it's my spirit animal. Oh, it's that. But when she's like, no, Jennifer, that's where you go into the ethers. The Pegasus takes you there.
And it seems like an actual metaphor that exists. So Luana, may we ask you, have you ever seen a Pegasus? And it's okay if you have not, but have you?
She has a barn with a bunch of them in there. She just showed me a ton of them, like around. She said that They walk around like people here.
And so are we correct that they represent this travel
energy,
between realms?
Just like angels.
Like angels. Wow. Very good.
They're like the FedEx of the spirit world.
Okay. That's too good to not note. The FedEx of the spirit world. I love that. I mean, of course, one of these days we'll interview a what's the singular? Pegasus. We'll interview one of them and ask them about their journey, but it'll drive people crazy right now. But let's suffice to say, let's thank everybody. Let's thank Elvis. So let's thank everybody. Amelia, thank you so much for propping us up and keep saying that we tell your story, because of course we love your story. It's so insightful.
From a different perspective, make it exciting. It's almost interesting, fiction or nonfiction. Why not make it fictional by telling a non-fictional story?
Still, it's that idea of finding a way in to tell her story. And someone will, and it might be me. Thank God, that would be great. But if it's not, it's okay. It's more important that people hear your story.
I still see us in Saipan. It might be 10 years from the time that we talked about it, but
yeah. Well, that would be lovely. It's a weird thing for me to say aloud, but based on the fact that we've been doing this successfully for 7 years, I have no doubt in my mind. I know where her plane is, or pieces. I know where she is buried, or pieces.
She just put George Norrie in my head. So whatever that means.
Well, George likes to talk about her, and in fact, I was called on the show just last week. They called me in the middle of the night and they said, "You got an hour?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then they introduced me as the guy who talks to Amelia. So, Amelia,
maybe that's it. I didn't hear that. I didn't know.
There you go. I know you did not.
Awesome.
So,
all right.
We love you. Thank you so much, guys.
We'll
see you next week.
We made up for last week.
Yeah, that's right. Very good. All right. Thanks so much. Bye. This has been Hacking the Afterlife podcast with Jennifer Shaffer. For more information, jennifershaffer.com, martinizone.com, or richmartini.com. Hacking the Afterlife documentary is available on Gaia.com via Amazon Prime.